Hello and welcome back to High Vibe Table Talks. I am so excited to have our guest today, Meg Gersch, on the podcast. Welcome, Meg.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on.
Awesome. And I cannot wait to talk to you because I put a question out on Threads, and that's how we connected because I am an extrovert. And I feel like there is this misnomer out there that in order to be a successful business owner, you have to be an extrovert. And I felt called to have someone on who is um, an introvert. And so that's how we connected. But so, first and foremost, can you tell us who you are, where you're located, and who you serve?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm based in Los Angeles, California. I'm a branding and website designer and creative director, and I serve creatives, entrepreneurs, and other business owners that really are challenging the status quo, that like to do things a little bit differently in their business, and boldly stand out from others.
I love that so much. Your whole, like, I was on your Instagram earlier today, just kind of, doing my research, and your brand is very bold. And I love that you empower others to be bold and take up their own space on the internet. It's really, really beautiful.
Thank you so much.
So, I would first like to say, as someone who is an introvert, how would you define being an introvert? Like, what characteristics, what traits, what makes you an introvert?
Yeah, so I see this the most when I go to in-person events and when I like go out in public. I will find that I can like turn on an element of extrovertedness, like when I'm in those social settings. But when I come home and I'm just like in my own space, like with my husband, I am just like, please do not talk to me for another 3 to 5 business days. Like
Yeah.
I need that time to kind of reset and recharge. It just it there's a definite difference between being out in public with people and like I think like it's really easy to think that people are extroverted, especially for somebody like me who shows up on video a lot, like in their social media. But in reality, I'm just talking to my phone in my own
hmm
space. So that's where I see it the most.
Yeah. And I definitely had a few people reach out and they are introverts, but they feel really comfortable doing a podcast. And some people are like, I don't get that, but it's just a one-on-one conversation. And when I was doing some Googling earlier this morning, it's like introverts really crave depth. And so
Hmm.
that one-on-one conversation just feels more impactful because you get to that depth a lot quicker. Um, and I was someone, I didn't realize that my husband was an extrovert until years into us being together because he's a teacher. But once I really understood what being an introvert truly is, I was like, oh, this is why he takes his weekends and breaks like so seriously. They're very sacred to him because that is his recharge time.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely feel that so much. Especially I'm sure your husband, he's around people all the time. So like
hmm
that's probably definitely very draining.
Yeah. Um, I say this like as he's taking a nap right now because he finished school and he's like, I need a nap.
Love it.
Um, so, um, my question around business owner and introvertness is being a business owner means you have to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, regardless of being an introvert, extrovert. Um, it's just it's an uncomfortable thing to create something out of nothing. And so, how do you, as a business owner, push yourself outside of your comfort zone while still honoring the parts of you that are more of an introvert?
Yeah, so I like to create what I have in the past called like my different marketing buckets. So I have a high energy bucket, a medium energy bucket, and then a low energy bucket.
Ooh.
And so for lower energy days, for example, I will tend to lean on like more text based marketing. So that way I can still show up for my business, but not have to be face to camera. And it just allows me to stay consistent and still, get the word out that my business is still open. I'm still accepting clients, that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
in a lower lift capacity. So, just managing and really checking in with myself, like what my energy is like. And that varies too, like depending on like what part of my cycle I'm on too. Like that's
Yeah.
another like element as women, like we have to kind of manage that as well. So really honoring that and just kind of checking in with myself to see like what I have the capacity for.
Hmm. That's really, I really like that idea of different buckets and saying, what do I have the capacity to do? That's so, so good. And so that's kind of like an internal question, for yourself. And then the other side of that is like, I'm very close with one of my sisters who is an introvert. And again, before I really understood the nuances of it, I was like, I just need to like push her to be more social. And looking back on it, I'm like, I was such a bully to to not, that's not what introverts need. That's not fair to them. And so how do you build up those external boundaries with others who may be trying to some whether it's in good conscience or not or whatever, but kind of um tread on how you are feeling.
Yeah. I think that that honestly is a skill that is built with just time as being an entrepreneur, like really noticing like those like internal nudges like in yourself, like listening to your intuition and following what you actually want. Which I think a lot of the time when I think back on my early days of my entrepreneurship journey, I would just say yes. Like I was just like a, people pleaser in a way. But now I've kind of learned to really hone those boundaries and kind of like tell, folks like when I need take a rest when I need a rest, or, if they're asking for something that I can't deliver in that time, it is just explaining, maybe that's not available right now.
Hmm. Yeah. So it sounds like that throughout your journey, you've done a lot of internal work. Is that like a daily practice for you? Do you have any like rituals and routines around it?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like one of the least talked about things in entrepreneurship is how much of a self development journey it is. It's like the fast track to like, you want to get to know yourself really freaking well and like how you work with others and find out things about yourself that you had no idea about. Become an entrepreneur because it will expose parts of yourself that you did not know that you needed to work on. And it is something where for me at least, like it has been a daily practice of making sure that I'm taking care of myself. I have a fitness routine, making sure that I am journaling in the morning. Like these are things that I know, like when I do them, I'm in a way better headspace to serve my clients and to show up marketing my own business and that kind of thing. So it's really, really important.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, and how do you, this is just not an introvert question, but just a business question that I know a lot of, especially creatives, fall into when they're starting their own business is working on other people's business over your own. Like you
Mm.
still have to show up for your own business while managing client work. So how do you find that line?
Yeah, so I tend to block out certain days for certain tasks. So I'll give you an example of this. I don't usually take any calls on Mondays or Fridays. So
Mm-hmm.
I block all of my calls into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's also usually when I work on like client work. And Mondays are typically like my CEO days. So that's when I'm working like on the actual pieces of my business that need to get done. I'm scheduling out emails. I'm checking in with people that need to be followed up with. I'm working on planning out all of my marketing for the week. So that way I have like a plan.
Mm-hmm.
So batching out the days like that has really been helpful. As well as, just taking a look at, again, my energy and my capacity, like what that week looks like. Sometimes I have events, sometimes I have, personal stuff that I need to handle. And fitting that into my schedule. Like I'm really, really big on Google Calendar. And if I need to get something done, just putting a block of like, even if I'm working on a project, like putting a block of time on my calendar. So when that time comes, I'm like, oh, okay, this is what I'm working on. So I have that blocked out.
Mm-hmm. And Do you find it difficult if the days, like enough of your Mondays and Fridays, don't end up as high or medium energy, or maybe like you have a Thursday, like today, if you woke up and had a low energy day, would that affect the meetings that you took, or like those sorts of things that come up?
Typically not for meetings unless I'm like, down and out sick.
Yeah.
But for my own marketing, I do kind of like ebb and flow. So I have like a loose guideline that I set kind of at the beginning of the week that I have pretty much in my head, like good, better, best. And like that
Yeah.
is kind of what I kind of strive for. And there are some days where, I will put out multiple posts in a day just because like
Mhm.
I know that, some days are going to ebb and flow and like it's cumulative. It's not, um, you know, it's not going to be judging me on like a per day basis per se.
Mhm.
So I try to look at it that way.
Yeah. And do you have any tips for it sounds like this is something I've been working on for a long time, is like giving myself grace for how my brain is, for how my body is, for how I'm showing up that day or that week. And so do you have any like do you have little like sayings that you tell yourself, or how do you find that grace in showing up as an imperfect human being?
You're preaching to the choir over here. I'm a recovering perfectionist. So,
Uh-huh.
one thing that a therapist actually taught me a long time ago was to, instead of making a to do list, make a done list.
Mm,
So, that for some reason has switched something in my brain where it's like, oh, I actually did get a fair amount of stuff done today. And really
mhm.
looking at it from a positive lens of like, not from like that place of like, oh, I have all these things and, I wanted to get XYZ done, but I only got this done. But instead, when you look at the done list, it's like, oh, I actually did some stuff today.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we all struggle with that too. Like it's so funny when I run virtual co-working, and I also run like masterminds. And so at either at the end of the calls or on Fridays for the mastermind calls, it's like, okay, well, what did you get done this week? Like let's. And so many times women will come on and be like, well, I didn't do that great. And then they're like, but I did this and I did this and I had this happen. And I'm just like, time out. Hold on. Let me just reflect back to what you just said to me, all the things you did accomplish. And let's rethink how you think you did this week. Like progress over perfection for sure. And also, you did a lot of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's a really good perspective.
Yeah, and I think like people when you ask somebody about like what did they do today too, they typically just think about work stuff. But you also like got out of bed in the morning, you took care of yourself, you walked the dog, you fed your family, like you did all these other things too. And I think that credit needs to be given where it's due, where it's like we're all balancing a ton of different stuff.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, and with I don't know if you've heard the spoon theory about like how many
Hmm.
spoons you have.
Yeah.
And like you said, some days you only had two spoons and you gave them all away. So you gave 100%, even if the external validation seems like you didn't do a whole lot.
Yeah, I've since taught my husband that theory and we use it sometimes because I'm like, dude, like I don't have any spoons left to make dinner. And he's like, I got you.
No. Yeah. And so, kind of leaning into that, how have you had to like, do you have to ask for help as a business owner? Like, was it something that you've had to learn to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that is again another thing that has come with, I've been an entrepreneur full time for almost 7 years at this point.
Wow.
And so, it comes with time. That's definitely something where I was not asking for help in the beginning. And when I look at my life and my business now, like I have a business coach, I have a group that I can lean on. Like I'm, trying to make an effort to connect with other people online and like, collaborate with others more and that kind of thing. So, just realizing and I think like respecting and honoring like your special talents, your special magic, and leaning on people when you need to, whether that be in your life or business.
Yeah. Using the word magic, a lot on your Instagram, you talked about, hold on, I want to get the quote because I'm going to forget it. Your weirdness is your superpower. Can you say more about that?
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite things to talk about because I truly feel like everybody has like unique magic within them. Everybody has unique skills, unique talents. And I also firmly believe that sharing that with the world is a superpower and is something that can really bring that magnetic element to your brand. Um, and I think just like, when things are quote unquote normal, that's boring to me.
Yeah.
Like I want to see like your weird quirks and like, what you're doing behind the scenes and that kind of thing. That just like is so much more interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you help people, but first you helped yourself. Like, as a society, I think we couple the word weird with like bad, and part of that is our like animal brain of if you get too far outside of what is holding our community together, if you do things too against the grain, you're going to get eaten by a tiger or what,
Yeah.
like, and so it really sounds like one of your superpowers is helping people understand that you need to shine a light on that. And that is how you show up as your best self.
Yeah, I feel that so deeply, and I'm very very grateful that a lot of people that come into my world already are starting to recognize that they are doing things differently already in their industries, and they are already kind of approaching things a little bit differently, and I think that that's why they come in. But yeah, I just think it's like the coolest thing ever to we don't need more carbon copies of the same. We want to see something different.
Hmm. I'm going to switch topics a little bit just because maybe my ADHD brain, I don't know, but I heard like an ambulance or something in the background.
Mm-hmm.
As someone being an introvert living in a huge city like Los Angeles has to just add another layer onto it. How do you manage that being in a big city and like with a lot going on, a lot of noises, a lot of just it's a very busy city.
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
The noise really doesn't bother me much. I'm kind of used to it. It's one of those
Mhm.
things like, I live in a fairly busy area where there is you'll hear fire trucks, you'll hear ambulances all the time. And it just is like, I barely even hear it anymore, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
But most of the time, like, I am very much in my own space. And
Yeah.
when I'm not, I'm going out to concerts, which like strangely does not like bother me. Like that's like a very individualistic experience for me. I know that that's
Oh,
like a weird thing, but it's like,
no.
I'm not talking to anyone. I'm just like zoomed in on the
Yeah.
music, like listening and dancing. Um,
Mm.
I think that that's a thing too, where I mentioned earlier, like my fitness routine and like movement is like a really big part of, um, like getting into my zone as a creative. And I think
Mhm.
that that's part of it where it's like when I'm moving my body, like that is calming my nervous system and like really
Mm.
getting me tuned into, you know, more ideas, more, deeper thought and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So you said you've been an entrepreneur for almost 7 years. And so I saw that you did jump from your 9 to 5 to a creative business. Tell us what that journey was like. And I love sharing the messy middle pieces of entrepreneurship. So if you have any of those juicy nuggets, I would love to hear those as well.
Oh boy, do I have some for you. What do you want to know? Just kidding. Yeah, so at the very beginning of my entrepreneurship journey, like right before I quit my 9 to 5, so I took a course on like how to be an entrepreneur, right? So I
Hmm.
learned all about like, how to set up your funnel, lead magnets, like all of that kind of stuff. How to make money, how to work with clients, like just the very, very basics of like when you're going into business of yourself. And I would find myself doing that course on my lunch breaks at my job. And so I was like, this is a pretty good indicator that this is going to happen. It's just a matter of when. So I eventually took the leap and I wish I would have done it sooner. Like, it's just like the best thing ever. You get to work with the, clients that you want to work with. And like, I just feel like there's so much more freedom with it. But as far as like the messy middle, like I've certainly had many, many, many of those moments.
Mm-hmm.
The one that is coming to mind is that I used to have a decent sized TikTok account. It was 72,000 followers.
Wow.
And I was out at my husband's work party one night, and I stepped away just because I needed a breather. It was
Mm-hmm.
a lot of stuff going on. And I looked at my phone, check social media really quick. And I had a message on there that said, your account has been permanently banned.
No.
And so I was like, okay, don't panic. You're at a party. Like, you can deal with this tomorrow. Basically, came back to it the next day. There was no recourse, is the short of it. Like, I emailed people. I tried reaching out to contacts. I tried asking friends, like, what to do. Asked other friends that had happened to and that kind of thing. And basically, all of the advice that I was getting was just start a new account. So that's what I did. It was in the moment, a definite blow to my business. Like, over 50-ish% of my business came from TikTok. And so it was like definitely a moment of like, what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I'm past it now.
Yeah. But it sounds like a big pivot that you had to make. And like, there's so many of those moments that we all have in entrepreneurship, and you have to just like say it, like you said, okay, how are we gonna fix it? How are we gonna do it? So
yeah, definitely. And it was a definite moment of, how like sometimes in entrepreneurship, there are these moments of like, I'm posting, I'm putting all this stuff out there, I'm screaming. Is anyone listening? Like, is anyone out there?
Yep.
But that was a definite moment where I realized I had really built a community, because the second that I announced that had happened to people came out of the woodwork being like, how could this happen? Like, this is crazy. Like, your content's like purely educational, like blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know. Here's my new account. Like, thanks for being here. And it just was like that moment of like real duality of like, this horrible thing had just happened and I don't know what's going to happen with my business. But also there's all of these people who I clearly got, I made it through to them.
Yeah.
And it just it was a moment of gratitude at the same time where it's like, whoa, like I really have been doing something here.
Yeah. And that's another like great lesson of entrepreneurship, is holding both of those true at the same time, of like, this effing sucks. Like, how could it? And then also like, look at this beautiful table that you've built with all these people that are there to like just hold you during those moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. One last question. Again, it's going to be a tangent before we get into lightning round, because we are coming up on time. What's the best concert you've ever been to?
Oh,
is that like asking your favorite child?
Oh my God. I mean, the one that is coming to mind is I saw Radiohead at Coachella, and that was like otherworldly.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's very cool. I forget now. I'm going to do a horrible job telling the story, but my sister went to Red Rocks and saw a concert there. I can't remember what it was, but same thing. She said it was like a religious moment for her just to be there, and it just was like something that forever changed her.
Oh my gosh. Red Rocks is a spiritual place. It's so beautiful. And if anyone listening ever has a chance to go, I highly, highly, highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's on my bucket list for sure.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, we could talk forever and ever, but like I said, we are coming up on our time. So, Meg, are you ready to get into lightning round questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. What is a must-read book?
I'm going to have to go with Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. Do you like that book?
I love that book.
I love that book too.
And I have like the most random reason that I read it. not to hijack your lightning round questions, but I used to manage two Pilates studios and we were opening one of them. So like I was the only person with the keys except for the owner. And I walked out to do something and locked myself out. And I locked my phone out, my computer, everything. I had to go to this a FedEx store that was next door and call my boss, but I didn't know her number like by heart. So I was like, "Do you know the guy who like owns the plaza?" And he was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Can you call him for me?" And then I had to get anyway, so I'm like stuck in this FedEx store for like an hour and a half because the owners had to like leave work, go get the keys, come, whatever. That book happened to be on the shelf, and I read like the whole thing just sitting there waiting for the owners to come. And it just was like life changing. And so I totally agree.
Yeah, it's awesome. I loved it. I've read it like 3 times.
Yeah. What does creativity mean to you?
Oh, letting yourself play and also allowing yourself to maybe make bad art first before you get to the good part.
Mm-hmm. Yep. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Be yourself. I know that's so cliche, but like honestly, it is so I feel like people aren't themselves a lot of the time, and to truly step into that feels like a badge of courage. Like it's just, the hardest thing to do, but also the most rewarding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, society does a good job of telling us that who we are authentically is wrong.
Yeah.
What is something that's on your bucket list?
I want to travel to all, well, not all continents, but maybe like 6 continents. I could do without seeing the South Pole. That's a little too cold for my taste. Obviously, I live in LA, so.
How many continents have you been to?
I've been to 3.
Okay,
I'm halfway there.
very cool. And last question is, what is the coolest shit you've done in the last year or are currently working on?
Probably a few. I've done a pretty cool few website in a day type projects. And I've also traveled quite a bit with my husband. I love traveling. It's one of my big like whys in business. I love the idea of just kind of having that freedom to like explore while still getting to do with what I love to do in business. So,
Do you have a memorable meal from one of your recent travels?
oh my God, so many.
Yeah.
One of my favorite meals was in Italy. It was the last day of our trip, and it was a goat cheese ravioli, which like was insane.
Well, now I'm starving. I love food, so I love like just hearing about people's food adventures. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. So, when people listen to this, where can they find you? Where do you like to show up online?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on. This is such a fun time. You can find me on my website, megangersch.com. It's megangersch.com. And I'm on pretty much all the social medias at Megan Gersch or at megan.gersch.
Perfect. We'll make sure to put links in the show notes so people can find you. And thank you so much for joining today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.